Hey now, I have got a half pork loin here with just sort of a decent little fat cap on it, and I want to turn this into a smoky chipotle pork loin. I'm going to cure it with some awesome chipotle powder I've got. I'm thinking maybe a little bit of cold smoke out in the smoker before it dry ages. So come along for the ride and see how it turns out. So the first step here is going to be making my cure, and you can see I'm starting off here with this beautiful chipotle powder that I've got, and I'm running with 2% of the meat weight worth of this. I'm going to be adding some cure number 2, or like Prague Powder number 2, the sodium nitrate here. Get that in there. I'm going to be using 3% kosher salt. Toss that in. And then I've got some brown sugar here. I'm just going with 1% brown sugar. There is already a little sweetness in this chipotle powder, but I just wanted to add a bit more because of the amount of that chipotle powder I'm using. And also if I wind up cold smoking this, I just want to have a bit of sweetness here initially in the meat as well. So I'm just going to take a minute and bust up a little bit of that brown sugar, the chunks there, and get this thoroughly mixed. So I have my pork loin in this meat tub, and I'm going to actually put on the cure in here initially, just so that I can try to get a nice little coating on all of this pork loin. And if any of this cure is, as a bunch of this cure splashes off of it, it just goes into the meat tub to be easily collected and added to my vacuum bag here shortly. I'm going with this equalization cure, so everything's done by weight. I have the exact amount of salt and cure and everything in here that I want in the finished product. And it's just a great way to be able to cure your meat and not worry about having to like freshen it afterwards and accidentally over salting or anything like that. So there we go. There is all my cure. Now I'm going to track down my lovely 7-year-old assistant to give me a hand here with this next step. So here we are. I'm going to go ahead, take my pork loin, very carefully, get it into this vacuum seal bag, which I double sealed the bottom, and I'm going to be double sealing the top here as well, because that just helps prevent any possible leaking situations and some of that sweet cure juice getting out and about in the fridge. And then I'm going to go ahead and carefully add, somebody's leaning away from the chipotle powder here. Carefully add all of this, and once this is in here, I'm just going to shimmy this bag around, try to somewhat evenly distribute as much of that cure seasoning as possible. So all I did was just kind of closed up the bag by hand and then shook it around like a little shake and bake. Got a bunch of that excess spice and everything all kicked around there. And then we'll go ahead and vacuum seal. So as I just kind of wait a second for this to cool down so I can do a second seal on it. This is going to go into the fridge. I'm going to write down the weight, the product, today's date on it. It's going to get probably about anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, just depending on my level of patience in the fridge. Again, going with this equalization method of curing. You can't over cure with time. It's just how long do I want this chipotle powder and everything to really penetrate the meat and soak in as much flavor as possible. So every day or so I'm going to go in there and just sort of massage the meat, play around with it in the fridge, reposition it, and just try to be patient. After 6 weeks, here we are. Definitely more time than we needed for actual curing, but this has allowed for what I'm hoping is maximum flavor penetration. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut into this bag. Toss that. Get rid of those scissors. Look at that. What kind of a crime scene is this? Okay, so just using some cold water here, I'm just going to rinse off some of this extra chipotle powder in preparation for cold smoking. Well, not surprisingly, it smells a lot like chipotle powder in here right now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to dry this off as much as possible here, just with some paper towel, just patting it dry. So just firing up my pellet tube smoker, and I've got the Chipotle charcuterie hanging out right there. So we're just going to get this nice and sparked up, and then we will be able to cold smoke. Okay, so I'm going to let this go. I'm going to do a single cycle. I'm doing this overnight just because here during the day it's going to be a little too hot, but overnight it's basically refrigerator temperatures. So that is perfect for cold smoking. After smoking around 6 hours through the night, it's now morning, so it's also off-gassed a little bit. I'm just going to pull it out, get it in the fridge here during the day, and then I can repeat tonight. Night 2, round 2 for this Chipotle charcuterie. Also have a couple of pork loin hams, getting some cold smoke, and a little medium cheddar cheese. Woo! Are we excited?
I am.
I think we're excited.
What do you want to say about this magnificent meat?
I want to say, smells oh so good.
Oh my.
Smoky, a little spicy, awesome. I've got some pasted hog skin here, and we're going to wrap this in that for the curing chamber. We are going to give it a spritz down here with some potassium sorbate, which we mixed up just with some distilled water, and then it was 3% potassium sorbate with the stuff that we had purchased. So we're spritzing it down with that just to help prevent any sort of undesirable mold growth underneath this pasted hog skin. Just because we don't want to have to like unwrap it and deal with it or anything like that. So you do have different options for wrapping. Pasted hog skin is what they had at the sausage place the last time I went there, so that's what I purchased. I think I prefer the collagen casings or the collagen sheets over the pasted hog skin just because they're a little less fragile. This I've found, especially if it's dry, tends to tear a little bit more easily. And we're just closing this up here with
Just doesn't store quite as well.
Huh? Oh, exactly. And we're just closing this up here with some 1/2-inch hog rings. And now, our favorite part. These so we have vinegar-soaked netting here.
Goggles on, folks.
Which may have a little splashback when we go to do this. So anyway, let's go ahead and tuck it on in using what I like to think of as the rolled up sock method here. And just slide this up. Oh, easier said than done. Work those fingers in. Perfect. And
Number one way casing gets torn.
yeah, that's right. Okay, we're going to quickly get this set up here as well with another round of the hog rings. Wouldn't necessarily really have to do the casing with it just because we are putting it in the netting here, but I just kind of like to do that to help prevent it from wanting to slide up when we get the, oh Colin, you can pinch my fingers. Having that casing slide up or anything like that when we're trying to get it in here. So now we'll just cut off a bit of this excess netting. It's always good to have more than less before you do that. And just using my little sausage pricker here, go ahead and poke this a little bit to help prevent any little air pockets. Again, just bearing in mind the potential for undesirable mold growth. Okay, so we're going to give this a quick spritz down with some vinegar here right after we go and get a weight, because we want to know a nice pre-hang weight on this so that we know when we hit our 35% weight loss. Okay, so we did go ahead and write on here the product, the original weight, the date, and then our target weight, and that's with the 35% weight loss, which should work out pretty nicely for this. And just going to go ahead and tuck it into this curing chamber. I'm going to have it off on the side here because we're loading up a bunch of meat today and I don't want to run out of room. This is set at 53 Fahrenheit and 72% relative humidity, which should be perfect. So there we are.
All right.
I just weighed her out. We have hit our target weight loss on this good old Chipotle charcuterie. Let's get it out. This is smelling like Chipotle, which is very exciting. So it's been 3 months with it sitting in that curing chamber, which is, for this size of meat, I find usually just enough time for it to hit that target weight that I'm looking for. I'm just taking off that netting. I'm going to throw this in a vacuum seal bag here, and we're going to equalize. So even though the curing chamber has a nice higher relative humidity in there, it's always a little bit drier, and not hard, but drier on the exterior of the meat. This gives that a good chance to equalize any of that moisture evenly distributes throughout, resulting in a better finished product. So I'm just going to vacuum seal it here. So this is the best way to equalize meat. I find that just wrapping in plastic or something doesn't quite cut it the same way. If you're needing a vacuum seal, which is handy for way more than just charcuterie, I've got some good links to some options on Amazon in the video description. Time to hit the fridge. After nearly 2 months of equalization, it's time to test out this Chipotle loin. I'm just going to cut open my vacuum seal bag here. Ooh, we'll be able to reuse that. So I still have that casing on there. So I'm just going to slice that off and pull it off here. So that time there was intended to let any sort of slightly drier exterior equalize with the undoubtedly slightly more moist interior. I smell a lot of smoke. It's very exciting. Let's have a little slice into this and see what it looks like. Just going to do this in half. Just like so. Ooh, it's a touch darker along the bottom there, a little lighter along the top. But other than that, the vast majority of the meat looks really nice and equalized. Excited. Let's get this on the slicer. So I'm just ripping off some slices here on my Avanco SL10 meat slicer. I absolutely love this. You don't necessarily need as fancy a slicer as this in order to make the charcuterie, but it's a lot of fun to have. So I'm just going to do this. I mean, part of the fun of making the charcuterie is then having it sliced so incredibly thin that you can see your finger on the other side of it. Oh, there we go. I need to try this out. Oh, what do I smell? I smell smoke and I smell Chipotle, which is basically almost everything that went into this. So let's try it out. I was excited about this idea when I first tried it. I had no idea it was going to taste this good though. This is absolutely stunning. That Chipotle taste is in there. All of that. I'm so glad that I had this in the cure. It really, really penetrated the meat all the way through. Absolutely delightful. Not really spicy at all. So if you want to do like a spicy Chipotle, you would definitely have to add something that has more actual heat kick to it. But flavor-wise, it's incredibly rich. It's smoky. And I think going with that brown sugar in there just gave it a tiny hint of sweetness just to balance with everything else. Absolutely fabulous. I'm going to have to try spicy Chipotle at one point too, but for now, I'm extremely excited about this. Highly recommend that you give it a whirl. And until next time, keep it at 11.